Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.
The San Diego City Council is throwing its weight behind striking workers at the Hilton Bayfront Hotel. Thank you for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. And this afternoon, the council voted unanimously for a resolution calling on Hilton to come back to the bargaining table. And KPBS reporter John Carroll is live outside the Hilton Bayfront with why union leaders say Hilton is acting against its own best interest. John?
Maya, we'll get to that point in just a moment. But first of all, the workers have been out here making noise, getting their message across all day, as you can see and hear. They are still out here. These workers are represented by Unite Here, and they've been on strike now for 17 days. Earlier this afternoon, a group of hotel workers were joined by San Diego City Council members Sean Elo Rivera, Joe LaCava, Kent Lee, and Marty Juan Wilpert outside of City Hall. Rosa Carrillo works in housekeeping at the Hilton Bayfront. She says it's not fair that she and her fellow workers often have to work more than just one job to be able to afford to live in San Diego. Her remarks were translated by Unite Here President Bridget Browning. After Carrillo, we'll hear from Browning on why she says the Hilton is acting against their own self-interest.
Queremos tener solamente un solo trabajo, no dos trabajos.
And we would like to have just one job, not two.
Porque cuando tienen dos trabajos, no les dedican tiempo a sus hijos.
Because if you have two jobs, you're not able to spend time with your children.
I would say, make a business decision. We have cost you more in lost business than the contract would cost. At some point, you just got to put your ego aside and do right by the workers.
Browning says the last time they were at the negotiating table with Hilton was last week. At that point, she says the offer was a $5.50 raise over 4 years. That would put the lowest paid workers at $29.50 an hour in 2028. And she says that's just not sufficient to be able to live in San Diego. Now, we did reach out to Hilton, of course, for a comment, but we never heard back from anyone. Maya?
John, are the workers just striking at that hotel? And if that is the case, then why?
That is a question I put to Bridget Browning earlier today, and the answer is that the contract here at the Bayfront Hilton was the first one to expire, so they're the lucky ones that get the strike. Browning did say that other contracts are not far behind, set to expire later this year. Live in the East Village, John Carroll, KPBS News.
And from hospitality to the travel industry, production at Boeing's Washington state plant has come to a costly halt as talks between Boeing union workers and federal negotiators continue. Karen Kafa has the latest on that strike.
Federal mediators working to bring Boeing and the union representing 33,000 of its workers closer together.
If you want to attract talented people here, you have to give them a decent pay rate.
Late last week, members of the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union rejected a deal reached between union leaders and Boeing and walked off the job.
Give me back my retirement, give me my decent pay raise, and you'll have 33,000 people actually willing to help you build airplanes.
Since 2018, a series of crashes and near disasters have dented Boeing's finances and reputation. But last year, Boeing's then CEO saw a 45% pay raise, while wages of Boeing's union workers stayed flat. Art Wheaton of the Cornell University School of Industrial and Labor Relations says the workers have leverage because their work is so specialized.
It is a huge problem trying to replace those workers because there's not a lot of people that know how to build airplanes, especially these large airplanes around the world. There's a very limited skill set for this.
In a Monday employee memo, Boeing announced temporary spending cuts, including a hiring freeze and travel restrictions, and said furloughs of employees and executives are possible.
A strike can cost them more than $1 billion a week, so they really do need to get this solved quickly.
Union members say they want a 40% pay bump over 4 years to make up for recent inflation and for nearly 2 decades of past contracts that downsized retirement and health care benefits. In Washington, I'm Karen Kafa.
It's cool out there with readings down into the low 50s for some. 43 in Campo will be in the upper 50s to the mid 60s along the coast. Look out for that marine layer, those low clouds to return late tonight. We have been dealing with some air quality issues associated with smoke. A lot of the smoke's a little bit thicker to the east and near the Mexican border. Also a couple of spots to the north where we're dealing with some of that. We will take a look at a gradual warming trend after a prolonged cool spell coming up in just a bit.
And the airport fire in Orange and Riverside counties has now burned over 120 homes and forced entire communities to evacuate. And according to CAL FIRE, it's burned over 23,500 acres and is 31% contained. More than 2,000 firefighters are still on the lines as crews try to shore up the west flank before the Santa Ana winds roll in.
The firefighters made a stand right here in my driveway. They used my hose, they cut that fence out, and they fought that part of the fire right there and kept my house watered down. The neighborhood as a whole, it's like a bomb went off.
And CAL FIRE says Highway 78 is now open after downed live power lines made roads dangerous. But there is still infrastructure repair happening, so they warn drivers to remain cautious. A senior enlisted Marine at the San Diego Recruit Depot is in the brig and facing charges. KPBS military reporter Andrew Dyer has the latest.
Until last week, Sergeant Major Gerardo Trino was the highest-ranking enlisted Marine at the 3rd Recruit Training Battalion at MCRD San Diego. He was arrested September 11th by the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. A depot spokesperson tells KPBS Trino was removed from his role the next day due to, quote, loss in trust and confidence. That's boilerplate military jargon used when leaders are removed for any number of reasons, often for some sort of misconduct. Neither the Marines nor NCIS is saying why Trevino was arrested, with both citing the ongoing investigation. NCIS says Trevino remains in the brig in pretrial confinement. In the military court system, it's up to a person's commander whether they remain behind bars before trial. In that system, Trevino won't be charged until a preliminary hearing can be convened. Thousands of Marine recruits go through boot camp in San Diego every year. Andrew Dyer, KPBS News.
Mexican drug cartels are recruiting San Diegans to smuggle fentanyl into the United States. Prosecutors tell KPBS border reporter Gustavo Solis they are particularly worried about teenagers getting caught up in the cross-border drug trade.
It's very concerning to see these young high school kids, and they are carrying fentanyl. They have it strapped on their body, risking their own health.
That is San Diego District Attorney Summer Stephan. Over the last 3 years, she has seen a steady increase in minors prosecuted for drug smuggling. For decades, Mexican drug cartels have made San Diego a key hub in their drug trafficking networks. And contrary to election year rhetoric, cartels rarely use migrants crossing illegally to smuggle fentanyl. Instead, they use people who cross the border through the official ports of entry without raising suspicion.
The organizers, the organized crime that's involved is smart enough to try to select people that can cross through the border without a criminal record so that their detection is at a lower level.
Fentanyl is the ideal drug for this type of smuggling. Small quantities of the powerful narcotic fetch big profits. So there's no need for the boats, planes, and underground tunnels that cartels have historically used to transport drugs like marijuana and cocaine. Fentanyl can be carried in a breast pocket or hidden in a glove compartment. Sydney Aki is the Director of Field Operations at the Customs and Border Protection's San Diego Field Office. He says cartels look for people who cross frequently and are desperate for cash. High school and college students often fit the bill.
They prey on individuals that potentially are on financial hardship, and they utilize these individuals to try and bring narcotics into the United States.
Sometimes all it takes is a few $100s or the promise of a shiny new smartphone.
They're getting paid a small nominal fee, maybe an Apple iPhone or Android phone or something to that nature, which they really cherish and want.
There are also people smuggling fentanyl without even knowing it. The practice is so common that Border Patrol agents have a name for it. They call it being a blind mule. This almost happened to 2 students at Southwestern College in Chula Vista. GPS tracking devices were found on the undercarriage of their cars. Here is Southwestern's Chief Safety Officer, Marco Vareño.
We were able to see what appeared to be a young gentleman get out of the passenger side and attached a device underneath the car, which matched the location in which the student had found it. So that information was provided to the federal authorities, of course.
Vareño believes that smugglers targeted the students because they cross the border often. Drugs can be planted in a car in Tijuana and then picked up in the Southwestern parking lot without anyone finding out.
We're all creatures of habit, right? We usually park in the same location because it's in proximity to your classes, so it's easy to track that car. You have it identified, you know where they park, you track it for a few days to see what time frames they're in, and it's easy pick up and drop off.
Campus police are now warning new students during orientation.
It would be irresponsible for our department to say this doesn't happen because we don't hear about it. So we need to be conscious that this is going on. For every 2 or 3 that you actually spot, how many you don't.
Stefan is also counting on education and awareness to combat fentanyl smuggling. Her office recently posted a billboard in El Cajon showing the faces of dozens of San Diegans killed by fentanyl.
I was just with 32 San Diego families who've lost children and loved ones. We were putting up a billboard that was driven by these families with the faces of their children and their siblings.
That's part of a larger outreach effort that involves visiting San Diego's high schools to warn people about the dangers of getting caught up in the drug trade.
The recruitment is very active, and what the cartels tell these kids is that nothing's going to happen to you.
But with more than 700 San Diegans dying from overdoses every year, Stefan says the consequences are very real. Gustavo Solis, KPBS News.
2 different cities in the South Bay are hoping to do something about the homeless crisis. The cities of Chula Vista and National City are debating encampment bans today. Chula Vista is considering a ban on encampments within 500 feet of schools, parks, transit stops, shelters, and safe sleeping sites. National City could pass its ordinance as early as tonight. It would ban encampments within 2 blocks from schools and altogether at transit stops and waterways.
We're going to be doing it in a very humanitarian way. This is not going to be a clean sweep and just, okay, you all got to move. We're providing resources for everyone, and we're pushing on the county for the mental resources and things that they should be providing also.
If both ordinances are passed, they would take effect 30 days later. Those caught violating the ordinances could face misdemeanor charges. A $13 million investment in a construction facility at a local high school is paying off. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne says the students are building tiny homes for homeless veterans and learning skills that they'll take with them after graduation.
A brand new construction facility with all the drills and hammers, all in the grasp of Rancho Buena Vista High School students.
With so much space, we can do bigger things. I mean, it'd be really difficult to teach construction, residential construction in a small space. So we have a lot of space. There's not really any limit to what we can do.
Landon Cardenas teaches a construction course at the high school. Before the 9,000 square foot facility, he says projects were smaller in scale.
Making small little tables and benches, and now we're building sheds and tiny homes. So we've really expanded the projects we're doing.
The class is building a couple of tiny homes that will be donated to homeless veterans through the Warrior Village project this week.
This is going to be my favorite project so far because, I mean, we're starting to build a tiny home with plumbing and electrical and everything, which is pretty cool for someone my age to start doing.
It actually really makes me feel really good. Like I feel like I'm doing a good deed. And
Eric Espinosa and Jorge Hernandez are both seniors. They say this project and the class has opened up a new window of opportunity for life after high school.
It's going to be like a big opportunity to, you know, go out and say like, oh, I've worked with electric. I know kind of the basics of plumbing and stuff like that. So it's going to open a lot of doors.
Maybe you won't get a job as that. You might get a job as something else. But say when you're at home or anything, you need to fix your own car or some electrical problem. You can do it yourself. You don't have to pay high prices with other companies that'll help you out. Yeah, you can basically do things on your own.
Cardenas says that's the goal of new hands-on courses, as well as getting real OSHA certifications and meeting with apprenticeship programs.
A lot of students start to really realize that it's a viable option for them, and it's something that they can do with their future, which something they might not have had before this class, you know. And college isn't for everybody, you know. I don't try to nudge students either direction.
In the last 4 years, he says he's seen struggling students find a passion in school once again.
It's not the normal class, you know. They're not sitting down, they're standing up, they're using their hands, they're thinking, and they're working together. It's amazing, yeah.
On Wednesday, this group of students will collaborate with other school districts and trade professionals on the Tiny Home Project. Tanya Thorne, KPBS News.
Well, today is National Voter Registration Day. It's a holiday dedicated to encouraging people to register to vote, and it is celebrated each September. Southwest College held a voter registration event on campus today. Students were also encouraged to participate in a poll and a discussion about the recent presidential debate. National Voter Registration Day started back in 2012, and since then, its thousands of partners have helped get more than 5 million people registered to vote. With America's bitter divide on full display this election season, social media platforms are often blamed for fanning polarization by failing to rein in hate speech and misinformation. And KPBS's Amita Sharma reports on new research showing Instagram does little to stem harassment of women politicians. And she joins me now to tell me more about this.
That's right. Maya, the Center for Countering Digital Hate studied more than 500,000 Instagram posts related to 10 well-known women politicians, 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans. The Democratic side included Vice President Kamala Harris and congressional representatives Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Nancy Pelosi. The Republican side included Representatives Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and Senator Marsha Blackburn. From those 500,000 comments, researchers extracted 1,000 of the most toxic posts. One person posted in reference to Vice President Harris, quote, "We don't want blacks around us, no matter who they are." Another person targeting Senator Marsha Blackburn wrote, quote, "Hope someone leaves you for dead in a ditch." Here's Imran Ahmed, who started the Center for Countering Digital Hate, describing the other types of posts he found aimed at these women.
Using extreme language, the C word repeatedly, using racist language, calling people the N word, slurring people in all sorts of ways, but also the constant drumbeat. So we found that a lot of these posts were from repeat offenders who were consistently going back again and again and again to these women and abusing them, so that every time they post, no matter what it's on, it might be talking about how they have a new childcare policy. It might be talking about how they want to improve healthcare locally.
Amitha, this is very serious language. So tell us, who's posting these comments?
Well, Maya, there was a time when law enforcement would tell us that trolls were loner guys in their PJs, sitting in their parents' basements posting. But Emmett says when it comes to online harassment of women politicians, that's simply not the case. He says it's coming from people across the political spectrum. It's being posted with impunity, and it's because online abuse against women has been normalized.
So what was done with the research findings then?
Well, Emmett said that they took the 1,000 text messages about the women politicians that they had ferreted out as being toxic and in violation of Instagram's own rules and submitted them to Instagram. Here's Emmett describing what happened next.
Having it handed to them on a silver platter, they took no action. Sexist abuse like make rape legal, racist abuse like we don't want blacks, and threatening comments like death to her and her supporters.
And I should say, Maya, I reached out to Meta, which owns Instagram, for an interview, and here's what the company's head of women's safety, Cindy Southworth, said about the Center for Countering Digital Hate report. Quote, "We provide tools so that anyone can control who can comment on their post, automatically filter out offensive comments, phrases, or emojis, and automatically hide comments from people who don't follow them. We work with hundreds of safety partners around the world to continually improve our policies, tools, detection, and enforcement, and we will review the CCDH report and take action on any content that violates our policies. Ahmed emphasized this is not a case where new rules are needed vis-a-vis these kinds of posts. He says platforms just need to enforce their current rules on the books.
Now, Amitha, you yourself have reported on threats to local women, both on social media and in person at meetings. So tell us, what is behind these threats?
Pure and simple intimidation. A year ago, I spoke with UCSD political scientist Barbara Walter about the purpose of the intimidation. She described it this way.
It's a form of verbal terrorism designed to basically verbally beat your target into submission.
So how do women holding local office, how do they handle this?
Well, the ones I've interviewed, and I interviewed them a year ago, such as Chula Vista Elementary School Board member Kate Bishop, have accepted that it is part of the job of being a woman and holding office, but it cuts.
I'm a human being, so for a second, it hits me hard. And I say, God, that's scary. When it's like really graphic or sexual, I usually talk to my husband, and then I realize that the person making the threat doesn't have the words to express their emotions healthily.
Amitha, that's some great reporting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maya.
And to explore all of the Public Matters stories and sign up for updates, visit kpbs.org/Public Matters.
It has been a cool time, and the cool air is with us for most of this week. Very cool weather, especially in the interior compared to normal. That's where you're feeling the biggest departure from the norm, but it is nice and cool along the coast as well. Wildfire smoke and even a little blowing dust has still been a concern in some areas, especially in some of the interior. So we're going to keep an eye on that. We expect to see some gradual improvements. After this cool work week, we will turn warmer this weekend, and temperature going to be rising once again. But for tonight, down to 64, at least in the metro, with some low clouds near the coast. Some of you in other spots inland will be a little colder than that tonight. And Wednesday, still some cool air prevails out there with some rain showers. There are even spots in the highest elevations of this area where some snowflakes are falling. We expect to be dry into most of Southern California. But again, we got the blue on the map, a little breezy and cool. The winds are strongest off to our east. And there are still some ongoing wildfires that we're keeping an eye on. Overall, though, it's a cooler time, and the dew points are up, and that's good for mitigating some of the fire danger. Low clouds are with us, though. A big chunk of the day cloudier near the coast with some improvements in the afternoon. Elsewhere to the east, you can see we're only going to be around 59 in Mount Laguna, 91 for Borrego Springs, certainly beating the worst of the heat that we experienced all summer. And future satellite and radar, well, most of the showers will stay to the north, and for us, again, relatively lighter winds building in after one more disturbance kicks through, keeping the winds active for the short term. Later this week, by Thursday night, Friday morning, you can see that there will be some showers into Nevada and parts of Utah, but we should stay dry here with the low clouds still lurking each morning. Into the coastal forecast here, you can see we're around the mid-70s for highs Wednesday and Thursday, even Friday, back up to 80 for the weekend, so there will be some rise there. Inland areas, some clouds are going to hold on for a bit of time here, at least a few dozen miles inland, maybe even 50 or 60 miles inland, but will turn much warmer Sunday, 88. The warmth will be building back into the mountains here. Breezy. Still some degree of fire danger, but cool for several more days. Then we really bounce back up this weekend with temperatures on the rise. And into the deserts we go. We can find temps ranging from the upper 80s for a cooler setup Thursday and Friday. And then it's back to the mid-90s and even a little bit hotter than 100 once again on Sunday. For AccuWeather, I'm Jeff Cornish for KPBS News.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the News Hour, in an apparent Israeli attack, Hezbollah pagers explode across Lebanon. That's coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Today, San Diegans were introduced to the man who will be heading its new major soccer league team. San Diego FC held an event to introduce newly appointed head coach Mikey Vargas. He most recently served as the interim head coach of the U.S. men's national team. And Vargas gave some insight to his vision for the club and what coaching here in San Diego means to him.
I met my wife in San Diego. I've met some of the best friends of my entire life in San Diego. Some of them were born and raised in San Diego, but many were not. This place draws a certain type of energy and a certain type of humanity to it. The project is greater than just a sport. It's about impacting not only the players and the people involved, the fans, but the entire community, and ultimately trying to impact humanity in a really positive way.
And San Diego FC kicks off its inaugural MLS season in February of next year. And here is a look at what we're working on for tomorrow in the KPBS newsroom on NPR's Morning Edition. Life in Mexico City presents many challenges for people there, but getting a driving license isn't one of them. And KPBS Midday Edition is discussing the link between climate change-driven heat waves and social inequity. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. All right, thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Have a great evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Bill Howe Family of Companies, providing San Diego with plumbing, heating, and air restoration, flood and remodeling services for over 40 years. Call 1-800-BILL-HOWE or visit billhowe.com. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. And by viewers like you. Thank you.